And once it happens, then you can think about all the kids, the little boys, the little girls that will see this image of these men coming back home from space, and then let them set their paths for going and doing the same thing. And I think it's really important that we give that access and opportunity to all kids and let them, cherish this moment and see themselves as one of these future explorers, part of our next generation.
Absolutely a momentous day, a historical day as we continue to inch closer and closer to that hatch being open. You can see that most of the crew has now backed away. There's just a couple of guys left there attending. One, I saw give the gentleman kneeling down by the hatch door the thumbs up. I don't know what he was indicating there, but I can only assume that we are getting very close to the hatch opening. We saw him put a pair of gloves on. He's doing something inside the opening on the hatch door. So while we wait, we'll send it back to Mike Massimino. Mike, your thoughts on what's going on right now?
Well, Chris, thanks. I am just so happy on a personal level for my friends that they're back safely and they're going to be reunited with their families. For the space program for NASA, this was a patient wait to get to this point. The whole commercial crew program, all those years since we flew the space shuttle, and now we're back flying again.
Hatch, waiting to, he's the physician ready to go in, and I think the other fellow is one of our lead recovery techs, and they're probably taking air samples, it looks like, through that. There's an equalization valve on that hatch, so that I'm guessing that might be what they're doing, and really just working with the mechanism around the hatch door. Well, you have to make sure the pressure is equalized, and so the same pressure on the inside and the outside. And then really it's just a matter of turning a crank. And it could be done from inside the capsule, or it could be done from the outside, and actually the plan is to do it from the outside. So I know all of us are sitting here like, John, get him out already, because we're all impatient. But they're going to be making sure, the person they do this, there's really, at this point, the crew is fine. They've communicated with them. There's no sense of urgency. There's no medical emergency. So there's no need to rush.
Thank you for that, Garrett. Let's get back to David Curley in Houston for an update. David?
Yeah, I've got some insight as to what's actually going on here. So even though it's a small trace amount and whatnot, as everybody just said, they're in a rush to get them out, but not that much of a rush. So they're going to be doing this purge, and that's going to take a few minutes. And Doug Hurley talked a little bit about hearing something inside, but he thought that was just depressurization. Because you would have a fear of a leak, potential that some of this fuel was actually leaking, but he thought it was just normal depressurization of the capsule. But this is dangerous stuff. You don't want to breathe it. I may actually see somebody there with he has a gas mask type thing or over his
oxygen setup.
So that's what's going on. And Garrett can tell you a lot more about this.
Yeah, Garrett, please expand on that. What we're hearing from David Curley. What is NTO, and what are the dangers associated?
So the fuel that's in that powers both the Draco thrusters that you saw that they use for the deorbit burn, and also the Super Draco thrusters in those pods that are used in case of a launch escape. Those are hypergols. So that's NTO and MMH. You have an oxidizer and a fuel, and once you don't even need a spark plug. Once those two things touch, they instantly ignite, which is why they're a great thing to use in space. You don't need to light them. You just need to get them. You need to open up valves and have them touch each other, and boom, you get propulsion. Now, the bad thing about them is that they can be harmful if you breathe it in, and so that's why they're being super careful about making sure that there's no excess and that there's no leakage in that system. And that's why you see them wearing the protection of the gas mask as they take their samples. And they have telemetry now in the boat, so they can see what the pressures are inside all of the tanks and really do a thorough job of making sure it's absolutely safe before they.
Out the ocean there, and there's still some danger involved, so we want to be really careful. So this is a point that you don't want to fight your excitement in some ways to not let you miss anything. So I think they just want to be really careful. If it takes a while longer, that's fine. We're not going to remember if it took 10 minutes longer or less to get them out, but we would remember if something unfortunate happened. So they want to be careful for the safety of Doug and Bob.
Community, and you've got to be very, very excited about the successful mission today, the successful return and splashdown, and what this means for the future of the space program.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. But as we're seeing right now, this is a test mission. I mean, from the beginning, it was called Demo 2, Demonstration 2, before we go to operational missions. And, it's still not over yet. And this just shows you all of the complexities that go into human spaceflight and how they're going to move so deliberately and so carefully. It's very complicated. It's very, very dangerous. I mean, that abort system, the Super Draco engines, as Garrett was talking about, and his hypergolic fuels are nothing that you want to mess around with at all. So they're going to be very, very careful right now.
Spike, and then they experienced the deployment of the chutes and the swinging underneath the chute, the shock event when those chutes come out and reef, and it's like being jerked around and twisted. It's like kind of being in those teacups in Disneyland that I go home with my kids, and I always look green when I come off of those things. So after all that spinning and then hitting the water, bobbing up and down, after all that, I'm sure they'd still rather be on solid ground, but they're in a place right now locked into that nest on that big boat where things are much better. And they also have air conditioning inside that has a minimum of 2 hours worth of electrical power to power it. So they're probably pretty comfortable lying there still. And I'm sure they'd be more comfortable yet if they can get out and take off the suits. But at this point, it is a bit of a relaxation. And, I also remember lying on their backs, but they're propped up a little bit. So they're not completely horizontal right now. When they're under the chutes, hanging at an angle, they were perfectly horizontal. But right now, they're a little bit heads up. And that's important because one of the things that we found is that we've been finding problems with astronauts' vision, and we think it's related to elevated intracranial pressure or blood rushing to the head. And so having them a little bit heads up is a good thing medically. But it's only a little bit of heads up, and you don't want to do too much of that because then you're at risk of passing out. You have something called orthostatic intolerance when you come back from space, which just means that your blood vessels aren't as good as shrinking up and holding the blood in your upper body, which we all do for 2 months, and so their brain has forgotten how to do that. So you don't want them to sit up quickly or stand up quickly. I know when I came back from 3 months up in space, I lied on my back for at least 15 minutes before I felt like sitting up, about another 15 minutes before I felt like standing up. I would have keeled right over if I didn't have all these things to hold on to, and that was on firm ground. So it's physically challenging coming back.
We're getting a live shot now inside.
They're still purging a little bit, so they may let it go. They're going to stop at 1 minute, but they're continuing it.
And as this purge
A little bit longer, they decided.
You're seeing
Reporting back to mission control and saying that they're safe, so they're just going to take it step by step, Chris, and they'll open the hatch when they feel like they're ready, Chris.
Mike Massimino, when that hatch does open and they're able to get to Doug and
Still, they're on a boat, and their stimulus system is very easily excitable now because it hasn't been working in space, and now they're getting gravity and they're getting a little motion involved. So I think they're going to probably need a little help getting out of there, but I expect they're going to recover pretty quickly. I know these guys have kept in shape while they were up there, and I think they're going to get their Earth legs back pretty quick.
Well, we are seeing that the crew members with the air tanks have moved away, and the initial crew members who were working on the hatch door have moved back in, probably to take some final measurements to make sure there is nothing dangerous in the air. Leland, once the physician is able to get to Bob and Doug and examine them, what will that examination entail?
Chris, I think they're going to just take a look at them and see how they're, just being in that microgravity environment. And I remember when I first got back from my first landing, I had to crawl out of the shuttle. I sat in the seat and I started taking my boots off, and I felt like I was doing a somersault. And so I leaned back in the lazy boy chair and asked the technician to come over and help me get my boots off. But the longer duration flight, they're going to feel probably more effects than a short duration flight, and they're going to just make sure that they're okay. You got to move slowly, like Mike said.
We're seeing a flurry of activity around the hatch door right now. Not sure exactly what that.
And high-fiving everybody. he'll go in and first make sure that they are ready and they feel prepared to come on out. And then as Mike and Leland were saying, they might need some assistance. But I think they're doing quite well. All these physical things that happen to you are pretty intense. But I can tell you that shorter, stockier guys for some reason do better. And so I bounced back pretty quickly.
Nearest to the hatch door, so perhaps that means they are getting very close to actually opening it up, and it's going to be an exciting moment, of course, right here on Discovery and Science Channel as we await the emergence of Doug and Bob safely, of course, and all that will happen after we discuss the physician will go in and make sure that Bob and Doug are okay and that they are ready to come out. We have communication with them inside the capsule, and they have indicated that there are no problems as of right now. David Curley is on the ground in Houston at Mission Control. David,
how more people there?
Absolutely, they just stopped the purge about a minute ago, so that's good news. In fact, that's what you heard, million of the MTO and parts of billions of the other hyperbolic fuel, and you just got to go. They are now going to open up the hatch. That is the green light, so you're going to see these guys now sticking some tools into the hatch door and opening it and allowing the doctor to go in first. So we are ready for hatch opening, Chris.
This is a very exciting moment in this mission, in our telecast. This is a moment of truth, one that we have been anticipating. You can see there that the crew members are just going through their last checklist. It looks like the person approaching the hatch door right now has the tool that will unlock the hatch door. Garrett, this is always an exciting time for astronauts, that moment of truth when the door is about to open. Take us through what's happening right now, Garrett.
Oh, when that door does open and you get your first breath of real air, here we go, the hatch is opening. That is something we've been anticipating for a long time. And then, you've been in this sterile environment for months, and you get that humid air, the smell of plant, or in this case, sea life. And it really gives you the sense of I'm back home, and that's just a wonderful feeling.
Well, that was a great moment. We saw the hatch door opening, and it looked like they're putting some sort of framework in the doorway. Garrett, what's that?
That's there to I think that's there just to support the door to make sure it doesn't swing closed, to prop it open and assist them getting the astronauts in and out of the hatch.
Well, again, a flurry of activity around the hatch door. We got a big thumbs up from one of the crew members who was at the back of the group there. That may have been a physician. We know that the physician will be going in to check out Bob and Doug, make sure they're okay. Christian Davenport in Washington. Exciting moment there, seeing the hatch door open.
All the crew to protect, obviously, for the coronavirus. Now, everyone on board was tested and had been in quarantine just to go to protect Bob and Doug. They're going to just take extraordinary measures to make sure that they're safe. But just waiting for that moment where we get to see those smiling faces of Bob and Doug. I mean, that is a good sign to see that hatch open and that doorway. And hopefully we'll see them coming out soon. And remember, I mean, they're not going to come off and be able to jump around. They've been in a weightless environment for 2 months, as we've been talking about. It's a bit of a rough transition coming back, and they're going to have that medical personnel right there. And the first thing they're going to do is check them out and just make sure they're healthy. Also on board, NASA and SpaceX have had engineers that are going to begin downloading the data and the telemetry from the computers on board Dragon to make sure to see how Dragon performs. So the health of the astronauts and obviously also the health of the spacecraft, Chris.
Thanks for that, Christian. Leland, we see a gurney being placed in front of the hatch. Is that just precautionary, or are these guys being affected by the gravity to the point where they're going to need to be wheeled out on the gurney?
It is precautionary, Chris, because you just don't know exactly how someone's going to feel once they start standing up and trying to come out of the vehicle. And so, some people are able to come out okay. Garrett, I think you were good when you landed. You were able to kind of scoot around a little bit, but you just want to make sure that you have all your dots crossed and your I's dotted so that you can make sure that if someone does get unstable, you can just wheel them in and take them to the medical area.
And we see things being removed from the capsule right now. Garrett, what are those kind of frame-like objects that we just saw coming out?
Those last two things, so they're carbon fiber kind of U-shaped things. Those are the footrests. So those are detachable from the seat, and you can remove them to make it easier to stand up in the capsule and step out. So it's no surprise to see those two things come out. I also saw them removed from the personal effects. They each have a little, what we call a satchel that they keep on their knee that has their tablet on top. It also allows them to take notes and keep personal items in there. So they removed them from their suits and brought them out. So these are all normal things that they do to get ready to bring the crew out. Now, the gurney that you see there is obviously in case of emergency, but also it can be used normally because walking this quickly after coming back after being up in space for months is very difficult and might not be something they want to engage in. When we bring our crew out of the Soyuz capsules, they immediately bring them down a slide and
Growth and everything else. Not getting up your orthostatic pressure could be compromised a bit, so getting up too quickly might not be a good idea. And Garrett brings up a good point. Sometimes people are going to react differently, and even on the shuttle flights, some people adapted very well. Garrett said, mentioned based on your body type, or you might be able to readapt very, very easily and walk around almost immediately. And others are going to need a little more time, and sometimes it's better just put everyone in the same basket there.
And perhaps SpaceX right now. Earlier, Garrett mentioned space cheese, and then Leland talked about a space burger, and now Mike, you're talking about space pizza.
Is that the astronaut right there? Yeah, it is.
I want to kick it on over to David Curley in Houston with an update.
Right now, he is telling them.
No, go back to the other way. Worms, why do you keep doing that?
Bob Bacon just told them, quote, "Thanks for doing most important parts of space travel, getting us up into space and getting us back." And Bacon said he wanted to say that before they got out of the capsule. And Hurley is speaking right now, thanking everybody at SpaceX for the job they've done, which suggests that they are just moments away from coming out of the spacecraft.
Right there.
We can listen into this, what Doug was saying. He just finished up. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully in person. There you go.
For those kind words, and we all wish you a safe journey home and a happy reunion with your family soon, and we look forward to seeing you in person as well.
Some really nice words there from Bob Beckett. There on your screen we saw NASA astronaut Doug Hurley.
I'm assuming that that is
of the capsule. Might have been hard to see.
Bacon. That's Bacon, who has made it onto the gurney and is being wheeled away. The commander would be the last to exit the vehicle. Bacon looks pretty good. They took this angle and good move of bringing Bacon out of the Crew Dragon.
Yeah, and David, we saw once he was on the gurney, he gave a little wave to the camera and he crossed his legs very, very casually, as if he was just in a Barca lounger instead of a gurney after space travel. So that's a very good sign. And what kind words that Bob had for the crew at NASA and SpaceX, and of course, return the salutations to him. So, as Dave just said, the commander always exits last, and so we are awaiting the exit off of the spacecraft of Doug Hurley. So cool to get to listen in to the
Going for Doug. The thing why they're wearing the helmet, why they have it still on the SpaceX spacesuit is all one piece, so it's not something he can just pop off. I think they would like to get that off, but that's why he still had his helmet on. But this is just a huge moment. I mean, you look at the history of SpaceX, and it's always been, here he is, he's coming out.
Why do they keep doing that?
And yeah, he looks good as well. And he's coming out. Yeah, but you think about what this means for Elon. It's just such a huge moment for that whole company. There he is. They're going to wheel him in and get checked out by the medical personnel. That's the first thing they're going to do. Just make sure that they are healthy and all set. But you go back and that's a great shot where you can see
Yeah, and just like Bob Behnken, Doug Hurley looks very comfortable, and they are standing up at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne.